Hey, we all want to be an expert at something. For me, I was lucky and I found my expertise back in 3rd grade. Oh, hey, Dad.
You are a disappointment.
Yeah! But for those less accomplished viewers out there, you'd be okay with playing slightly harder versions of the games you already play. So hey, I have some great news for you. Expert mode is to some people the definitive game mode for Terraria. That's me. I'm people. I'm people. My reasoning is very simple. It makes the game a little more challenging and also adds some of the most fun and useful items to the game, each of which are dropped from the many bosses of Terraria, and some I genuinely cannot imagine playing without. So, how about we take a look at them, starting with King Slime, as always, is the easiest boss to skip over. Despite his massive loot pool, not many of his items are necessarily good, other than maybe the slimy saddle and slime hook. And that stands true even in expert mode, as his drop, the Royal Gel, simply makes you immune to most slimes, meaning you don't take damage from them. So unless slimes are raining down on you from above, you probably won't get much use from this. But please, don't let this reflect on the rest of the expert mode drops for you, because it gets better. It gets so much better. The Eye of Cthulhu is my favorite boss. I know, hard to tell. It's not a hard boss. I'd say most people are able to beat it by the 2nd night pretty easily, which is why it is so absurd, so crazy, so unusual that the Eye's expert mode drop, the Shield of Cthulhu, is so good. The Shield of Cthulhu acts as 2 things, a weapon and a movement accessory. It gives the player a dash ability, which deals 30 points of melee damage on enemies if you make contact with them while dashing. That, in itself, is pretty dang good. I mean, it can kill weak enemies pretty easily. But the best part of it is the dash itself. As we all know, movement is quite important in this game. That's why the average build has boots, wings, mounts, grappling hooks, and mine carts. Movement is simply a valuable attribute in and out of combat, with the dash being a supreme option for combat movements. And this is the first chance to get a dash ability in the game. And at that, being one that grants the player 1 invincibility frame on contact with an enemy. See, this is why I love this shield. You can use it to avoid projectiles at the last second, and if you can't avoid direct contact with an enemy, by dashing into them at just the right time, you have the chance, the possibility, to slip away simply by using an invincibility. But it's not just useful for combat. It can be used for a couple extra interesting mechanics, one of which, my favorite, is using the dash to accelerate up to sprinting speed faster than Hermes boots alone could do. The Eater of Worlds brings a splash of fashion to the game with its expert mode drop, the Worm Scarf. The Worm Scarf is a simplistic item. All it does is reduce all damage taken by 17% as long as it's equipped. It's helpful, as it doesn't matter how far you get in the game, all damage forever, as long as it's equipped, is reduced by the same amount, that same percentage of 17. Even the equation used to calculate it can be found on the wiki. I'll put the link in the description so you guys can look at that. If you have never used the wiki, by the way, use it. That's what these videos use. It's like that's the one source you need for this stuff. All I'm gonna say here is it's a great item. Depending on how you play, this might just be an accessory you never take off. However, I will warn you, there is some divisiveness with this item, and that's because of, well, the brain of confusion. The world evils have always had fights between which is better or worse. My answer is usually Crimson, because it has Ichor and Vampire, 2 items that I use far more than their corruption counterparts. Then, whenever expert mode dropped, there was a shift. The Worm Scarf was just way better than the Brain of Cthulhu's drop, the Brain of Confusion, because at the time, it only really had a chance to inflict the Confusion debuff. But it is completely different now, because of one new addition, the 1 in 6 chance to dodge incoming damage, which, yet again, is good on its own, but after a dodge, for 4 seconds, critical strike chance and summon damage increases. The Brain and Scarf are commonly seen as relatively equal, with it really being on you whether or not you think one is a little better than the other. I personally think the Brain's a little better, but if you want my advice, pick whichever evil biome you would use more stuff from. If you know you'd use Ichor a lot more, but you think you want the Worm Scarf, just go with the Crimson. And if you want, like, the Scourge of Corruptor late game, go with the Corruption. The expert mode drop from each biome boss is great, and whichever you go with, I promise you, it won't disappoint you. Trust me. I've said it once before, I don't think this item is all that worthwhile. The Hive Pack is the Queen Bee's expert mode drop. Returns half of all friendly bees into stronger, bigger bees and increases the fire rate of the hornet staff hornets, but it just does not have the same lasting power as some of its contemporaries. If you're going to use primarily bee-themed weapons, by all means, this is good, but as you'd imagine, it ends there. Maybe if there was more bee-themed weapons throughout the game, instead of the handful from the Queen Bee and one from Plantera that we currently have, it could get more use. But sadly, we don't live in that world. If your primary weapon is a bee-themed weapon, go for it. If you have a secondary one, I wouldn't suggest it. But if you want one general tip from me, don't forget to unequip the Hive pack when you're finished with it. The Bone Glove is Skeletron's extra mode drop. It acts as an additional attack for the player, simply shooting a crossbones when the player attacks with a 1-second cooldown, and my hot take is that this isn't a terrible item. And my hotter take is that lying is just so fun. This might just be the least used extra mode drop, and I'm here for it. It's just not that good. If I were to suggest it for anything, I'd say that if you get it before your first goblin invasion, then maybe use it for that. The crossbones can pierce through 3 enemies, and it does moderate damage to them, but outside of that, it's just up to you if you want the extra ranged attack, but honestly, it's just not that well rounded, and you have better options, I promise. Recently introduced to the game with a cavalcade of good items was the Dearclops, and although some drops like Chester or Lucy the Axe are pretty high tier items, sadly its expert mode drop, the Bone Helm, does not match up. It's one of a handful of items that will automatically attack enemies for you, this one being a dark demon clawed thing that does okay damage. I personally use this when I'm going out like mining or exploring or grinding, but I never really suggest using it for a boss or event. You can get better damage from other accessories. It gives you an extra accessory slot. It is amazing. Use it every time. It is the absolute best, okay? Okay, I really don't have to explain this, okay? Yeah? Good. Queen Slime is not a great boss, and the Volatile Jelly also isn't amazing. Like the Bone Helm, it will automatically attack enemies for you, except this time it does significantly more damage. And yet again, as you may have heard me say before, I keep these as an accessory slot when I go mining, but like anything that Terrence Howard says, it does not add up. Each mech boss drops its own item that when combined becomes the Mechanical Cart. This thing is good. I love it. I don't even use mine carts much, but it is amazing, and since you're guaranteed to get all of its parts in an extra mode playthrough, it's always worth it to craft. Some people even use it to fight Moonlord or in some farms. All around, it's kick-ass. Plantera's extra mode drop is the Spore Sac, and it's another accessory that attacks enemies for you. It works in a more unique way, as it spawns spores on the blocks and walls around the player over time that will disappear and be replaced after 20 seconds. These spores hone in on enemies nearby and can deal hundreds of points of damage in seconds, and inflict the poison debuff, and they have a small AoE of splash damage. The Spore Sac is really good. Again, I'd say it's best to use while exploring or mining, really anything that you'd rather turn your brain off while doing, but even better for these is AFK farms. Since the spores can protect you from any mobs that spill into your safe box, it's a great item. I couldn't give enough praise to it purely for how helpful I find it is to have peace and quiet when AFKing. While we're on the topic of AFK farming, Golem also has a great accessory for it. It's called the Shiny Stone, and its effect is pretty simple, but also has its drawbacks. The Shiny Stone simply increases your regeneration by 400% when you're not moving. Yeah, that's the reason why I said it's good for AFK farming. You'd be strapped to find ways to use it consistently, as the average mind of a Terrarian is infested with mounds of ADHD, so you're not sitting still unless you're away from keyboard. Yeah, that's what AFK means, you know. You probably know that, but there is someone out there right now that is just getting their mind blown. Duke Fishron drops the best mount in the game. I'm not even sure how debatable this is. Its only competition is to drill a containment unit, but you can't fight a boss with that. You can't do that. You can't do that. If you ignore summoner, you can't do it. It drops the Shrimpy Truffle. When equipped, you summon the cute Fishron mount, which, at its base speed, is good. But what makes it better is that if you touch liquid, including rain, or you're under half health, the cute Fishron shifts into warp speed, cause gosh damn, why not? He's just happy to be here. Ideally, you might want it to rain in your world if you want the best conditions for a boss fight, but if you are impatient, you can set bubbles of honey around your arena to fully utilize the speed of this adorable anchovy. And plus, it works with honey. That's delicious. And it also buffs your regen. Yeah. And right before the endgame, your last stop before some genuine high-quality top-of-the-line boss drops is arguably the drop, only second to the Demon Heart. The Soaring Insignia. This extra mode drop from the Empress of Light does one simple thing that is so mind-blowingly helpful to so many that you shouldn't be surprised to find it at the top of so many players' lists. As the one thing it does is grant the player infinite flight time and lets me lie for dramatic effect. It also buffs general flight movement as well, but we don't find joy in little things in this channel. We focus on one thing and one thing only, and that is peak. Although mounts are mad helpful, and with something like the cute Fishron, you already get infinite flight, the flying insignia allows the player a more unrestricted movement set, making it possible to use dashes without needing to dismount before doing so. For that, the soaring insignia can be the reason you survive the impending doom. The impending doom of the Mourning Wood, the only event boss with an expert mode drop. And before you leave a comment talking about the pirate ship or sand take mount, no, you're fucking wrong. That's master mode. So yeah, simply put, the Mourning Wood drops the Witch's Broom mount. Personally, I think it's good. Obviously, the cute Fishron is the better mount in general, but purely for style, the Witch's Broom is my go-to mount. And before you say it, the answer is yes, you are completely right about whatever you're thinking. But with that said, we've reached the end. The final battle, the last step of your playthrough. One that was blessed with item after item exclusive to this difficulty and higher. Some good, some bad, but none nearly as bad as an unprompted message from today's sponsor. You. Guys, seriously, I make no money. Zero cash, nothing from these videos, because no one will sponsor a 772 sub YouTuber. Crash the subscription button with an iron fist. I'll consider you a sponsor. And you can, like, fondle the like button, and that would be cool, too. No pressure, though. Also, please stick around to the end of the video. I have an announcement to make. But also, without further ado, it's time. The Moonlord drops 3 separate extra mode items. One's good, one's great, and one's just way too late. The Gravity Globe is as basic as it comes. It's an accessory that works the same as the Gravitational Potion. At this stage of the game, it's just not a worthwhile item. That's because it's one of the handful of items that were unattainable originally when they were made, likely just used to make testing the game a little bit easier. At some point, dedicated players started digging into the code to get items like these, so the devs caved in and implemented pretty much every item like it in some way. They made the SDMG a Moonlord drop, Red's Potion practically just killed anyone that used it until legendary seats were made, and the Zappinator was made useless. And sadly, the Gravity Globe is in a similar position, because it follows 3 previous expert mode items that all allow infinite flight time through either wings or mounts. It's at a point in the game it just doesn't do enough for, and I truly can't think of a spot in the game that isn't either OP or redundant for it. Nor can I think of any fixes that can make it more reasonable. It's in a tough spot that it can't live up to expectations, yet it can't really be changed easily to improve it. Now, the suspicious Tentacle, that is an okay item. It's a light pet that emits the highest brightness stat for a light pet in the game, and also shows you the location of nearby treasure and enemies, with these little sparkle effects you may recognize from Spelunker glow sticks. Overall, it's not a super useful feature. Chances are that by the time that you have it, you don't really need to mine for ores or treasure, and really the best part of it is just how bright it is and how nice of a sprite it is. And yes, I'm biased. It looks cool, almost as cool as the best wings in the game, the Celestial Starboard. This beauty is the fastest, longest lasting, highest flying wings in the game. Combined with the soaring insignia, it makes for an amazing time, a convenient item, and the best cherry on top of the expert mode cake. Not to mention, it's a Kirby's reference. That's what I call whimsical. Expert mode is a great game mode. It adds so many great items you'd have a hard time putting down after using for so long. The exchange you make for a harder game mode is completely worth it, as you get to challenge yourself while discovering new features added just for that type of playthrough. That sort of addition is what makes this game so easy to play over and over and over again. To lose yourself in hours of unnecessary grinding when you know you could beat the next boss so easily already, but you just need that perfect setup. The right armor, weapons, accessories, just so you can dominate the same boss you've beaten so many times before. Yet this time, that boss has a new phase. One you're only going to learn now is your worst nightmare, as for the first time since you started playing, you lose a fight that was once so easy. You come to fall in love all over again. A love that is only compounded when you get a special item exclusive to this playthrough. That's what Terraria is about, and I couldn't be more proud.
I could, and I'm still not proud. When are you getting a real job? The mine's been yearning for you, and you never answer. You're disappointing little shit. I can't believe that you're still out here trying to do this YouTube bullshit. What the fuck are you on about?
Hey, welcome to the video. It's been a while since I've talked at the end of one of these, but hey, I have a little bit of an announcement to make, and that is that I sold out. Introducing the Dubsley Patreon. If you want to support me for $5 a month, you can get your name right on the end of videos, just right here on screen in a nice little text. Maybe my own text. I don't know. I might make a font just for this. I don't know. I gotta figure stuff out. For $10 a month, you will get your name read aloud. Wow. It's almost like everyone's Patreon ever. Really, there's not too many benefits that you get from it. That's really the basics of it. It's just really meant that for support. If you like the channel and you want to help in more ways than liking or subscribing, then you have the option there. I'm going to try to actually make videos a little faster and just work on some of my bigger ones in the background so that they can come out like mid-summer while you guys still get uploads instead of silence for 5 months. That was because of school, by the way. It's hard semester. Anyways, thank you for watching. Hope you have a great day. Don't forget, I'm watching you. Goodbye.